What are the top 3 most common or the absolute best arguments that atheists use? They rely upon these whenever you have a meaningful conversation with them.
Are you going to decide our best arguments for us? Somehow I don't think that's going to go over very well, Shawn. The arguments we use most often are usually in response to your crazy-ass claims. The frequency they're used is kind of on the other side. But if you're going to go there, let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. And today, it's Cousin Shawn, aka Venom Fang X. He's gonna critique what he thinks are the most frequently used atheist arguments, and I'm gonna critique his critiques. Sounds like fun, eh? Here we go.
Argument number 3. The problem of divine hiddenness.
In other words, the problem of claiming God exists when you can't actually show him to anybody. We demand evidence for any other claim that's made, but somehow God's minions make an exception for his existence, which is awfully convenient.
Our senses are limited to the material realm. Now, God, creating the material realm, would have to be, by definition, outside of or transcend the material realm, and so expecting a sensory perception of God defies the very nature of what God is.
Now hold on just a sheep-filleting minute here. Let's examine that premise for just a moment. First, Christians, at the very least, believe their God to be all-powerful, which means that, creator of the universe or not, nothing should stop him from manifesting on the physical plane. Of course, I always figured that the all-powerful claim was really just a way of saying that your God's dick is bigger than any other God's dick. Second, humans have created enough virtual worlds over the years. Just look at video games and the soon-to-be retail virtual reality sets we all can't wait for. We can manifest in those created realities. Granted, we do it through avatars instead of entering the digital world ourselves, but even so, we can be as gods walking the earth, especially if we've got the cheat codes. So I don't want to hear God existing outside of the universe being used as an excuse. It's not.
The creator is not inside of his creation unless he chooses to manifest himself in a way that we can perceive with our senses.
If the creator does not appear inside his creation, why would you suspect he's there? And why should anyone, yourself included, take your suspicions seriously? This is classic question begging. You're all, we can't perceive God in any way, but he's there. We swear. Trust us. You're gonna have to do better than that.
Let's recognize for a moment that it is a human desire to have that kind of experience.
But it isn't. What's there is a desire for knowledge, or more, for understanding. God or no God, this universe is full of things we don't know and can't explain, but we'd like to. And while some of us are willing to admit the things we don't know and to continue seeking answers, some prefer to answer what they don't understand with magic. Is it any wonder that pantheons have gods of nature in them? Thunder gods, sun gods, fire or water gods, gods of the seasons, all attempts to explain what their limited knowledge of science couldn't. The desire to learn and understand is being masked as a desire to know God, but we'd never have invented gods if we understood the universe more thoroughly.
And so, ask yourself this question. How is it that God could manifest himself to us, and has God manifested himself to us? Is there any worldview, any philosophy, any religion that claims that God has manifested himself, and explained by what mechanism he has done that?
Who cares? You can have a worldview and a book to match all you like, but if facts cannot be verified independently through evidence, nobody has any reason to believe you. This is why so many suspect that the threat of hell for non-belief is employed, because you know your claims would never hold up under critical scrutiny, so you have to use threats to maintain your hold on people, through fear.
Jesus Christ is the answer to the problem of divine hiddenness. You see, in the person of Jesus Christ, we have God in human flesh.
Either that, or we have a crazy person, or one hell of a con man.
Argument number 2. The problem of religious pluralism.
He's going to drag this explanation out, so let me give you the Cliff's Notes version. It goes like this. Too many religions, no way to tell which is right, so maybe none are. Problem is, that's not really the argument. It goes more like, there are so many religions, why should we think yours is the right one? Give us a reason why yours is more valid than the others. It's like the problem with every religion. Evidence is the one thing we don't get to have. That's what almost every religious critique has under its surface.
I think a more balanced approach would be this. You need to do a study in comparative religion and say which religion both satisfies a criteria by which I can know for certain that this is true, as well as which religion rings true with my heart.
Rings true with my heart? That's hardly an objective way of uncovering reality. If I went with what rang true in my heart, I'd be a fucking Jedi. As for fulfilling proper criteria, the first and completely non-negotiable criterion would be having no requirement of faith, replaced instead with empirical data to be analyzed should one desire facts.
Christians certainly recognize that human beings believe and have false religions and false gods. In fact, the Bible even says that. For example, in the Ten Commandments, it says, "Do not make an idol." And what is an idol?
Here she come now, say moaning, moaning.
Man's desire for God is indeed an evidence for God.
Then my desire for hyperspace-capable spaceships is evidence for what now? Someone else's desire to go to Hogwarts is evidence for what exactly? Humans imagine and want lots of things. That's not evidence for their existence.
In order to determine which religion is true, one must have a revelation from God. God must reveal himself in a way that we can be absolutely certain it was him, in a way that no other religion has, something that demonstrates divine attributes. For example, God is all-knowing, so is there any religion where God reveals things that could not humanly be known about the future?
Several, actually. But for most of them, you have to equivocate quite a bit to make the details of one fit the other. And that doesn't count how many religions have gotten things in the past quite thoroughly wrong, which should have been tons harder to manage.
Or the other attribute God could demonstrate is his eternality, the fact that God always existed. So God could interject himself into human history.
Or people, most with a vested interest, could tell completely unverifiable stories set in the past and insert God into them, like a divine Loch Ness monster.
You see, the God of the Bible is totally different. He revealed himself to the first man, Adam and Eve,
who nobody has ever proved existed at all,
and then revealed himself over and over and over again.
Such revelations conveniently beginning to dry up right about the same time humans began to understand the universe better through science.
And this compilation of revelations were all put into a single book, which we call the Bible.
And this compilation about a paladin in service to her patron saint is called the Deed of Baxenarian, but that doesn't make it true.
The Bible spans a 4,000-year period of time, whereas the Book of Mormon or the Quran span less than one human lifetime.
And the Bible gets a shit ton of those years wrong. From the origin of humanity to Jews in Egypt to Noah's flood, scientists have shown all of these quite critical points in the Bible to be complete bullshit, which ought to cast doubt on the rest of it.
Alright, so this is their best argument. Argument number one. The problem of evil.
Here's the thing about the problem of evil. It's really only an argument against the Abrahamic God. Like almost every other god before him, Yahweh is a real dick, but unlike those others, claims to be all good, to be omnibenevolent. It'd be really easy to discard this argument entirely. Stop claiming that your god is such a fucking Boy Scout and admit he's got a temper on him. Problem solved.
Question is this: why doesn't God stop evil? Why does God allow evil? If God is good, why doesn't he stop it?
I'm just going to stop this right here, because he's going to go on for another half-minute without even attempting to answer this question, instead talking about atheists not believing in objective morality, which we all know I've covered many times before. In fact, I've had to do a lot of pruning of redundant blatherskite, because boy does Shawn go on and on. As always, there will be a link in the description if you want to see the original video, but for now, let's move on to his next point, shall we?
What you want to do when you're answering this question is first point out that in order for something to be evil, there has to be an absolute standard by which to decipher what is good and what is evil in an absolute objective manner.
See, now you're begging the question and playing semantics. If you look it up in both encyclopedias and dictionaries, evil does not require an objective standard. And if you're going to base your entire argument against the problem of evil on requiring such a standard, you're going to be building one hell of a straw man. Besides, I'm willing to bet that our subjective evil and your allegedly objective evil have more than a few points of overlap, lines your God crosses more than once in your holy book. Thou shalt not kill comes pretty quickly to mind. Herod from the New Testament, for example, killed by an angel just for not praising God. Seriously, dude, just admit that your deity's a dick, and this argument goes away.
What makes something evil is it is against the nature of God. For example, murder is wrong because God created life.
I'd say that murder is evil because it happens to us against our will, and it really, really sucks. Do you want to be killed? I don't want to be killed. Being killed is something to which we did not consent and to which we would certainly object. I'd say that's evil, no God required. And if you don't want me to use the word evil because my reasons are subjective, fine. But I'd still say it's the sort of thing your God is obligated to prevent, given that pesky old commandment of his.
Being a naturalist or a materialist, just dismissing evil as natural, well then it's not evil, it's just the way things are, get used to it. Just saying it's not a problem and it's natural, that doesn't work. I can't do that. And the human heart can't do that. I refuse to believe even you can do that.
Shawn, the universe does not cater to what you can accept. It seems as though what you're unwilling to accept is the concept of tough shit. Get over it. But that's on you. Your unwillingness to accept the universe as is does not alter the facts.
You know, I used to think it was awful that life was so unfair. Then I thought, wouldn't it be much worse if life were fair? And all the terrible things that happen to us come because we actually deserve them. So now I take great comfort in the general hostility and unfairness of the universe.
And so, the real solution is this. Originally, the world was made good. There was no suffering, or disease, or pain, or death, or natural disasters. The world was made perfectly. It was paradise. And God gave man a choice. Life or death. Live with God in this perfection, or choose to go our own way without God.
Hold up. Wasn't there an evil devil guy? And didn't he trick them into eating that apple? That's not God giving them a choice, that's them getting conned. I don't believe this shit, but you're supposed to if you're following that holy book of yours. Why the sudden revision?
God gave man this choice because God is a loving God, and God's not going to force us to love him.
Do I gotta bring up that Herod guy again, killed by an angel for not getting his worship on? Do I gotta bring up one of the many possible reasons we might get sent to hell? Maybe we won't be forced to love God, but it sure sounds as if we're being blackmailed.
Adam and Eve ate from the fruit, the parents of the human race ate, and that caused a separation between the entire universe and God. Everything was plunged into death, and now the world is dead, separated from God, and that's why bad things happen.
And that, to you, is more comforting than bad things happening because the universe is indifferent. A couple of idiot teenagers way back when decided to be dumbasses and left paradise, knowing it would kill them. Their father deity did nothing to stop it, knowing full well the consequences, and that's why everything sucks, why we're all doomed. And somehow that's better. It's still not our fault, so what makes this more appealing?
If you look up trans-world depravity, it's just a fancy theological word which basically means to say that in any possible world where beings are sufficiently free to choose, they will at some point choose to do wrong.
The key term there being sufficiently free to choose. Well, who's to say what sufficient means? Take a look at Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. First, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Second, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. Within that framework, there is still a ton of choice, despite causing harm not being part of it. And I'm sure God could have adapted these to humankind. Do they not give sufficient choice? Truly?
And so Christianity provides an answer to the problem of evil. It says the world is supposed to be good. It originally was good, and something happened to make the world this way.
And your allegedly all-loving, powerful, and knowing God did nothing to stop it, figuring, all that suffering and death, it'll all work out in the end. You know, I didn't forgive Darth Vader after he left the dark side, and I'm not forgiving your God. I'm just glad neither of them are real.
Doesn't matter how good you lived, we're all going to end up in the same place as worm food. If that satisfies you, then you really don't have a problem with evil.
Except that it's not a problem with evil, it's a problem of evil, the inconsistency of an all-loving God who lets evil happen. And you should know that.
And so I find it rather hypocritical when the atheist, on one hand, says, well, why doesn't God stop evil? And then on the other hand, choose to persist in their rebellion against God.
The atheist isn't saying anything. The atheist is asking you, the God believer, why it's not being done. We're not saying we want it. We're asking you to explain your beliefs, your claims, your dogma.
It's okay to be frustrated by evil. The Bible even has quotes where people say, why do the wicked prosper? Why are there atheists on YouTube who get thousands of views and have success? And why do good things happen to them when God should just strike them down immediately? Well, God is on one hand showing kindness even to those who hate him.
Whoa. I don't hate God, except in the same way I hate other fictional villains, like Darth Vader. However, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of his followers, like the homophobes or those who oppose birth control. They're the ones who are actually causing mischief.
Catholics and other Christians are against abortions, and they're against homosexuals. Well, who has less abortions than homosexuals?
And on the other hand, if these people refuse to repent, if they refuse to acknowledge what they've done is wrong, they are storing up wrath to be revealed on the day of judgment.
Glad to know you think so well of us. Some of us are actually quite nice people, despite not believing in your God. Getting along makes life better. No God required.
And so the question is, how are you going to fare at the conclusion on the day of judgment? Have you trusted in Jesus Christ for your salvation?
Why would I? If I need to be forgiven, it's by the people I've hurt. If there are those to whom I must make amends, it's them, not your God. And if he exists and he judges me, surely he'd note the good I've tried to do, whether I went all gooey over him or not. If that's not worthy, if your God wants to send me to hell because I didn't worship him, then I say your God is a selfish prick, like a rotten child or a spoiled celebrity, and I want nothing to do with a God like that.
Now, with all of this being said, with the questions, where is God? Why are there so many religions? And why is there evil and suffering and death and disease in the world? You need to be sure when you're talking with someone who's asking these questions, are they asking these questions out of genuine interest? Do they want to know the answers? Or do they want to make a statement?
To be perfectly honest, it's a little bit of both. Speaking for myself, I want the answers, but you never really answer the question. You give an answer that kind of sounds related to the words that make up what was asked, but you dodge what the one inquiring actually meant by them. And after a while, that can get pretty frustrating, and that's when some of us start making statements, usually that you religious types are dipshits and your beliefs are a delusion. Is that fair? Is it unfair? The fact of the matter is that I don't know. Do you actually not understand what's being asked of you, or are you deliberately dodging the true inquiry? Either way, if you want us to see your point of view, you're going to have to first satisfy our curiosity. If you can't or won't do that, you'll never get us on your side, assuming that's what you want. Of course, if you answer our questions, you still might not get what you want, but at least you gave it an honest try. It still amazes me how many people can't accept clarification after they've answered the wrong question. You'd think I'd know better than they what my inquiry was about, but apparently not. Strange, that.
When people say things like, well, who created God? They're not saying it necessarily as a question, as if when you give them the answer that's going to satisfy them. They're making a statement. And when they're making a statement, what they're trying to say is they're trying to promote their atheism.
Not really. They're probably just pointing out a flaw in your position. I'm willing to bet someone of another religion might ask you the same thing if their beliefs were different enough. Don't assume that everybody is against you. Just provide a few answers to honest inquiries. Yes, those questions might cause you to realize that your religion isn't perfect, but just ask any scientist. Being proved wrong isn't an attack. It's help. It brings you closer to the right answer, and that's a good thing.
And that is how we can know God.
Will we know him biblically? Ha ha ha.
And atheists, if you'd like to respond, by all means, you are free to do so. Look forward to hearing your responses. God bless you all.
And may the Force be with you. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. Vote me down and I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.